Hey guys, happy Wednesday. It is the 22nd and we have such a great day today. We're going to get right into our read aloud, and I know that you guys are excited about that because of how we left off on our story from Monday. So I'm just going to get right into it. This is going to be chapter 18 and it's called The Bitter Truth. Look at that graphic. Ew, it's a little creepy. Well, this whole book has been a little creepy, let's be honest. But I want you to pay attention today while I'm reading, and I want you to really look and see who has the power, okay? We talked a little bit about who has the power in the beginning, and I want you guys to really focus on that this chapter because our question today is going to have to do with power. So I just want you to be really aware of that, and so listen carefully, okay? I'm happy that y'all are here, by the way. Thanks for joining me on YouTube, and thanks for subscribing to my YouTube. That's very helpful. You guys notice I try to do some things different a little bit every day. Like today I have different books in the background. They're all fantasy books. And I put back my lovely favorite sign, the 365 new days, 365 new chances, because we can always just do better than we did the day before, right? Here we go. He almost shouted out, seeing the terrible state that poor Mrs. Griffin was in. She was staring up at him with wild eyes, her hair pulled out in clawfuls, her face purple with bruises. A foul rag had been stuffed into her mouth. Harvey carefully removed it, and she began to speak, her voice a hoarse whisper. "Thank you, my sweet, thank you," she said. "But oh, you shouldn't have come back. It's too dangerous here." "Who did this to you?" "Jive and Rictus." "But he ordered it, didn't he?" Harvey said, helping her up. "Don't tell me he's dead, because I know that doesn't matter. Hood's here in the house, isn't he?" "Yes," she said, holding on to him as she climbed up out of the box. "Yes, he's here, but not in the way you think." She began to weep, the tears clogging her words. "It's all right," Harvey said. "Everything's going to be all right." Her fingers went up to her face and touched the tears. I thought I'd never cry again," she said. "Look what you've done." "I'm sorry," Harvey said. "Oh no, my sweet, don't be sorry. It's wonderful." She smiled through her tears. "You've broken his curse on me." "What curse?" "Oh, it's a long story." "I want to hear." "I was the first child who ever came to Hood's house," she said. "This was many, many years ago. I was 9 when I first walked up the front path. I'd run away from home, you see." "Why?" "My cat had died and my father refused to buy me another. And what do you think Rictus gave me the very day I arrived?" "3 cats," Harvey said. "You know how this house works, don't you?" Harvey nodded. "It gives you whatever you want." "And I wanted cats and a home and what?" "Another father." She shivered with fear, remembering the horror. "I met Hood that night. At least I heard his voice." Stew Cat had come to her feet, and she paused to stoop and gather the creature into her arms. "Where did you hear him?" Harvey asked. "In the attic at the top of the house. And he said to me, 'If you stay here forever and ever, you'll never die. You'll grow old, but you'll live until the end of time and never weep again.'" See, if you'll notice here, these words right here are in italics. So when I read them like in a different way, that's usually because they're stated in a different way. And this is what he said: "If you stay here forever and ever, you'll never die." Those are important words here, okay? You'll grow old, but you'll live until the end of time and never weep again. And that's what you wanted? "It was stupid, but yes, I did. I was afraid, you see, afraid of being put into the ground like my cat." A new wave of tears came running down her pale cheeks. "I was running away from death." "Straight into its house," Harvey said. "Oh no, child," Mrs. Griffin said. "Hood isn't death." She wiped her tears away so as to see Harvey more clearly. "Death is a natural thing. Hood isn't. I would welcome death now, like a friend I'd driven away from my door. I've seen too much, my sweet, Too many seasons, too many children, ... Why didn't you try and stop him? I have no power against him. All I could do was give the children who came here as much happiness as I knew how. So how old are you? Harvey asked her. Who knows? She replied, laying her cheek against Stu Cat's fur. I grew up and old in a matter of days, but then the passage of time seemed to lose its hold on me. Sometimes I've wanted to ask one of the children, what year is it in the world outside? Another sentence that's in italics. What year is it in the world outside? He said, I can tell you. Don't, she said, putting her finger to her lips. I don't want to know how the years have flown. It would hurt too much. What do you want then? To die, she said with a smile. To slip out of this skin and go to the stars. Is that what happens? It's what I believe, she said, but Hood won't let me die. Not ever. That'll be his revenge on me for helping you to escape. He already had Blue Cat murdered for showing you the way out. Hood's going to let you go, Harvey said. I promise. I'm going to make him. She shook her head. You are so brave, my sweet, she said, but he won't let any of us go. There's such a terrible emptiness inside of him. He wants to fill it with souls, but it's a pit, a bottomless pit. And you're both heading for it, said an oily voice. The speaker was Mar. She was oozing down the stairs. We've been looking for you up and down, she said to Harvey. You better come with me, child. She extended her arms in Harvey's direction. He remembered all too well her transforming touch. Come, come, she said. I might still get you out of trouble if you let me make something humble of you. He likes humble things, does Mr. Hood. Fleas, worms, scabby dogs. Come to me, child, quickly. Harvey looked around at the cellar. There were no other ways out. If he was to get Mrs. Griffin up into the sun, it had to be by way of the stars, and Mar was standing in front of them. He took a step in her direction. She smiled toothlessly. Good, child, good, she said. Don't, Mrs. Griffin said. She'll hurt you. Hush, woman, Mar said. We're going to have to nail that lid down next time. Her greasy green eyes swiveled back in Harvey's direction. He knows what's good for him. Don't you, boy? Harvey didn't reply. He simply kept walking toward Mar, whose fingers seemed to be growing like a snail's horns, reaching out to fix upon his face. You've been such an obedient boy. That word obedient is italicized here. Mar went on. Maybe I won't turn you into a worm after all. What would you like to be? Tell me. Tell me what's in your heart. Never mind my heart, Harvey said, reaching out toward Mar. What about yours? That's another italicized word. He's asking her now about her heart. Okay, I hope y'all are paying attention. A puzzled look came over Mar's face. Mine, she said. Yes, said Harvey. What do you dream of being? I never dream, she said defiantly. You should try it, Harvey told her. If you can change me into a worm or a bat, what could you do for yourself? The defiance on her face became bafflement, and the bafflement turned into panic. Her outstretched fingers began to retreat into themselves. Harvey reached for them like lightning, however, interweaving his fingers with hers. What do you want to be? He said to her. Think! She started to struggle, and he felt her magic surging through her fingers into his, attempting to work some change on him. But he didn't want to be a vampire bat anymore, and he certainly didn't want to be a worm. He was quite happy to be himself. The magic, therefore, had no hold on him. Instead, it flowed back into Mar, who began to shake as though she were being dipped in icy water. What are you doing? Italics, she demanded. Tell me what's in your heart, he said, returning her invitation. I'm not telling you, italics, she replied, still trying to wrest her fingers free of his. But she was not used to having her victims resist her in this way. Her muscles were soft and flabby. She pulled and pulled, but she couldn't escape him. "Leave me alone," she said. "If you harm me, Mr. Hood will have your head." "I'm not harming you," Harvey replied. "I'm just letting you have your dreams the way you let me have mine." "I don't want them," she yelled, struggling more than ever. He wouldn't let her go. Instead, he drew closer to her, as if to wrap her arms, wrap her up in his arms. Tongue twister. She started to spit at him, great gobs of slime, but she wiped them from his face and kept approaching her. "No," she began to murmur. "No." But she couldn't keep the magic she'd intended for him from working on her own skin and her own bones. Her fat face began to soften and run like melting wax. Her body sagged its ragged coat, and a greenish gruel began to pour out onto the floor. "Oh," she sobbed, "you damnable child." What dream is this, Harvey wondered, that was turning Mar to mush? She was growing smaller all the time, her clothes dropping off her body as her body shrank, her voice becoming thin. It could only be moments before she disappeared altogether. "What do you dream about?" Harvey said as Mar's fingers ran away like his own brackish water. "I dream of nothing." Nothing is italicized here, Mar replied, her eyes sinking back into her disintegrating skull. "That means it's disappearing." "And that's what I've become." She was almost lost in the folds of her clothes. "Nothing," she said again. She was no more than a dirty puddle now, a puddle with a fading voice. Nothing. Then she was gone, devoured by her own magic. "You did it," Mrs. Griffin said. "Child, you did it." "One down, 3 to go," Harvey said. 3? Rictus, Jive, and Hood himself. "You're forgetting Karna." "Is it still alive?" Mrs. Griffin nodded. "I'm afraid I've heard its shrieks every night. It wants revenge." "And I want my life back," Harvey said, taking her by the arm and escorting her, still carrying Stew Cat, to the bottom of the stairs. "I'm going to get it, Mrs. Griffin. Whatever it takes, I'm going to get it." Mrs. Griffin glanced back at the heap of clothes that marked the place where Mar had vanished into thin air. "Maybe you can," she said with astonishment in her voice. "Of all the children who've come here, maybe you're the one who can beat Hood at his own game." I keep thinking that this book can't get any better and better, and then it does. Oh, I can't wait for you guys to hear the rest of the story. Okay, so I asked you to think about our power today during our read aloud, and I hope that you've done that, because here's our question of the day. It's our stop and jot for April 22. You'll also find this in Canvas when you go log in through SSO. It says power shifts in this chapter. If you'll notice, I put that in italics because I wanted you to remember that when you're answering this question. But the question is, discuss how things have changed for Harvey and what he has discovered about himself. Okay? You guys, I cannot wait to read your responses to this question. I think it's that good. I think this has been by far one of my favorite read alouds that we've done, but this particular day and talking about how power is shifting and how characters are changing, it just all is coming together. We know that the setting is in this weird holiday house, which is really more like a character, and it's just so wild to me. All right. Your assignment today, you're going to, of course, log into Canvas through your SSO. You're going to go into Language Arts, and you're going to look under Quizzes. You're going to answer the question of the day there. That's what we just saw here. And you're going to fill in your reading log. Don't forget to hit Submit when you're in Canvas, because that's the only way that I can see if you guys are responding. And I hope that you guys are having an amazing day. I hope that you're spending some time with your family, maybe FaceTiming some people, or Skype or Zoom, or however you reach people. Just call them or text them, and just don't stay by yourself for too long. And hopefully you're reading some really good books. What a great time to read some good books. Anyway, I'm really super proud of you guys and how you're doing with this online learning thing. I know it's not always easy, but I think that you guys are rocking it. So until we see each other again, have a great Wednesday. Is it a wacky Wednesday? Have a great wacky Wednesday.